Hello everyone and welcome to Global Perspectives. I'm Emmanuel Ereyi. Today let's talk about a hot topic in economics and international trade: tariffs. Despite being a go-to tool for systems trying to protect domestic industries, tariffs often end up doing more harm than good. In this video, let's talk about why tariffs are widely considered as a weak economic tool, break down the hidden costs they create, and look at examples that illustrate their long-term drawbacks. So if you're ready to get into the nitty-gritty of the trade policy and its real-world impact, let's jump right in. But before we do, let me invite you to subscribe to the channel so you can see all our latest content. Do like, share, and comment. Also check out our other videos and playlists. Thank you. Now let's define what a tariff is. In simple terms, a tariff is a tax imposed on imported goods. Countries typically use tariffs with the aim of protecting domestic industries from foreign competition, hoping that by making imported goods more expensive, consumers will buy more local products. On the surface, this sounds like common sense, a win-win. Domestic companies get a competitive edge and jobs are protected. But as we dig deeper, the picture becomes much more complex. Tariffs, by design, disrupt the natural flow of trade. They interfere with the supply and demand dynamics that usually keep markets efficient. And when markets are distorted, inefficiencies arise, leading to what economists call deadweight losses, essentially a loss of economic welfare that no one can recoup. Let's talk about the inefficiencies. In a perfectly competitive market, prices are set by supply and demand, ensuring resources are allocated efficiently. When tariffs are imposed, they artificially raise the price of imported goods. This price increase distorts consumer behavior. People start buying fewer imports and may switch to domestic alternatives, even if they are not the most efficient choice. But this is not a guarantee. This misallocation of resources creates a deadweight loss. What does this mean? Simply put, deadweight loss is the economic value loss due to market inefficiency. Both consumers and producers lose out because the higher prices reduce overall consumption and output. In other words, society becomes poorer because resources are not used in the most productive way possible. Another major downside of tariffs is the impact on consumers. Perhaps this is one of the most important. When tariffs drive up the cost of imported goods, those higher prices are passed on to consumers. Whether it's cars, electronics, clothing, or even food, you end up paying more for everyday items. This doesn't just affect your wallet, it also reduces the overall purchasing power of consumers. Now, this is an argument. If households are forced to spend more on imported goods, they have less money left for other important expenses such as healthcare, education, or even savings. Over time, this erosion of purchasing power can slow down economic growth, as consumer spending is a key engine in economic activity. Here is another risk. Tariffs can also be a dangerous game when it comes to international relations. One of the most critical factors is retaliation. When one country imposes tariffs, its trading partners often respond in kind by imposing tariffs on their goods as well from the original country. This tit-for-tat escalation can quickly spiral into a full-blown trade crisis. It's a situation that is usually harmful for all parties involved. They disrupt global supply chains, increase costs for businesses and consumers, and can lead to long-term damage to international trade relationships. You don't have to look too far for many examples of that. Tariffs can backfire, harming domestic industries that rely on imported components, which also trigger retaliatory measures that hurt exporters. Now, while tariffs might offer short-term relief for certain domestic industries, their long-term benefits are questionable. Protection from foreign competition might seem beneficial at first, but it can also reduce the incentive for domestic companies to innovate and improve efficiency. When companies know that tariffs are shielding them from competitors, they may become complacent. This lack of competitive pressure can stifle innovation, ultimately making the industry less competitive on the global scale. Well, that's something to think about. Moreover, industries that are protected by tariffs often end up being less efficient and more expensive than their international counterparts. In the long run, consumers and the economy suffer, as industries that do not face competitive pressures fail to adapt or evolve. In our modern global economy, supply chains are incredibly interconnected. Tariffs don't just affect the import of finished goods, they also impact the entire supply chain. For example, a tariff on steel can raise the costs of cars, construction materials, and even everyday items like canned food. When tariffs disrupt these supply chains, it leads to a broader economic inefficiency and can slow down industrial production. These disruptions can have cascading effects, particularly in industries that rely heavily on imported inputs. The resulting cost increases and production delays can hurt businesses' competitiveness, reduce exports, and ultimately lead to job losses. It's a ripple effect that can extend well beyond the industries directly targeted by the tariffs. The negative economic effects of tariffs also have broader implications. When consumers and businesses feel the pinch of higher prices and disrupted supply chains, public support for such measures can quickly erode. It becomes a backlash not only from the business community, but also from everyday people who are forced to bear the cost of these policies. In many cases, tariffs have been used as a tool to rally domestic support or shift blame for economic problems. However, their long-term economic drawbacks often outweigh any short-term gains. Instead of fostering sustainable economic growth, tariffs can lead to increased tension between trading partners, higher inflation, and an overall decline in economic efficiency. So are tariffs a strong tool for achieving economic goals? The evidence suggests otherwise. While they might provide temporary relief for some industries, the long-term costs, inefficiency, higher consumer prices, supply chain disruptions, and the risk of retaliation make them a weak economic instrument. In today's interconnected global economy, sustainable growth is best achieved through open trade and innovation, not through protectionist policies that ultimately hurt everyone. If you found this analysis insightful, please hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Global Perspectives with me for more in-depth analysis. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.